Welcome to the new season of Destination Remarkable. I could not believe we've had such a long break, but I'm back in action and cannot wait to bring you new episodes every week. Without further ado, I am Mary Grothe. I am the host of this podcast, and I'm pumped that we are back in action. I took quite the hiatus for several reasons, but let's talk this through. Okay. What everyone has been waiting for, the cliffhanger. I wrote a book and that was exciting. I got to work with Forbes. They were amazing to work with. I love my Forbes team, and the book has performed extremely well. It's been out at the time of this recording, it's been out for 6 weeks. And here we are. It's still ranking as a bestseller organically, which means like all of you amazing people out there just keep buying it. And I get new reviews every day, which makes me really happy to see those coming through. For the most part, people really like it. Some people did not. That's okay. Got to take the good with the bad. All the reviews are good, though. I love reading people's opinions, seeing their feedback, and a lot of it's really good. Okay, so I need to give you all what happened. You need to hear what happened. When I submitted my last chapter to Forbes, it was the middle of January of 23. And this book didn't get published until September, third week of September 2023. So there's quite a gap between when I stopped writing the story and I was in the middle of everything. I was in the middle of such a crazy moment trying to figure out what to do with the business and what was next for me. So let me catch everybody up of what was going on in January. I had the wake up call of a lifetime because our business that had been performing so beautifully and so well for 5 years, the market shifted and I was pretty tired. I was burnt out as a CEO and I missed a really important pivot in the business. Here's what happened. Layoffs in the tech sector started happening in Q4 of 2022. So Q3 of 2022, the housing market at the end of Q3 came to a halt. All of a sudden, they were looking at war with Ukraine. We had everything going on in the market to cause a significant halt. And layoffs started in Q4 as a result. The market became flooded with pretty impressive, what I'll refer to as revenue leaders, CMOs, CROs, VPs of sales and marketing, head of marketing, revenue operations. Up until that point, my company, we had employed, just some of the best people, and we had done tremendous work throughout our history. The market shifts, things start to get really difficult across the board in all things revenue. We're promoting a fractional revenue leader service, which means we've got fractional chief revenue officers, fractional chief marketing officers, and they're going on contract and working for these companies. And they're helping them drive revenue on a part-time fractional contract basis. Okay. Well, we really had the competitive edge in the market, but all of a sudden, and the pivot I missed was all the layoffs happened. I thought, well, these great corporate leaders are just going to go get another job. Well, the market didn't respond with like a shuffling, like, oh, this company laid off, but this company is hiring. It was a lot of layoffs that happened fast. So the market was flooded with all this talent and didn't have the jobs to match. A lot of people too were just burned out and they're like, I want to give this fractional thing a try. All of a sudden, the market is flooded with fractional revenue leaders, good ones. And because they don't have overhead and they don't have a company and they're really hungry for work, they're pricing their services at an absolute fraction of what we were charging. So come January, well, back up, in December of 22, I am trying to remember the story and it was in the book. I think we had 10 or 11 really good sized contracts out waiting for signature. I actually hired in November and December, anticipating this business was going to come in December and January because we had historically always closed at a 50% rate. Well, shockingly, not one of those deals moved forward. And they were all able to secure a fractional revenue executive at a fraction of the cost of what we were charging in the market. And it really hurt our business. We ended up taking over $100,000 loss in January. We had increased our overhead, but we didn't have the business to sustain that growth that we had just done. So I had a misread on the market. It was a really big miss on my side. And as a CEO, I should have known, but I was tired, burnt out, exhausted. I know y'all read the book. If you didn't, go read the book. Destination Remarkable, Surviving the Dark Side of Success. It's out there everywhere you can buy a book. Okay. So January rolls around and I start feeling this pressure. Meanwhile, like this godsend opportunity, I'm working with Payroll Network, which is now PNI. Payroll Network Inc. is what that stands for. They came in on contract. I took the contract. I'm loving the work. I'm loving working with this team. It looks like such an incredible opportunity. And we're in talks about making that a full-time job. And I thought to myself, my company is struggling. I know we'll rebound, but it's a bad January. And wouldn't it be great if I could get myself off of the company's payroll and I'm going to go take a full-time job. I'll be taken care of. I'll get somebody else to step in as CEO, and then we'll determine what we do with the company. And everything was on the table in January. I thought about simply resigning, which I did, putting in a replacement CEO, which I did, and then continuing to own the company. That was an option, but just not working it or run it. So like, hey, I own an asset. I have a full-time job somewhere else. I have a great CEO that's in here running this company, and I go do this other thing. That was on the table. That looked like a super attractive option. I still had buyers that were interested in the business. So I thought, hey, I could go down that route and see if one of these buyers is still interested in acquiring the business. And then I thought I could also just dissolve my ownership and give this company to the employees. And that was the direction I was heavily leaning. I thought, I love these people. They've worked really hard for me, for our clients, for this brand. And I thought this would be kind of like a noble thing to do. I've moved on. I found a new gig. I'm super happy. I loved the last 5 years that I had. Let me just close this out on a high note. I'll shut it down with, my EIN, my number, federal identification number, and I'm going to give this to the employees, and then they can just reopen the bank accounts, the Fed ID, but keep the name the same. I'll just transfer all the assets to them. It'll be a $0 transaction, but they can just have this whole thing. And I was really excited about this, thinking like, hey, these employees can get ownership. They can play for something bigger. And I thought this could be pretty exciting. But we started to have these conversations internally, and there wasn't a lot of excitement wrapped around having ownership in this company and starting from scratch, even though everything would transfer over. But it was known that it was a tough economic time. There was uncertainty. And I think people were really trying to evaluate, like, what do I want? And so the team members were sort of mixed feelings of, kind of just came here to have a full-time job. I'm not really interested in ownership. Then, of course, there's the other side of people like, heck yes, I'm interested in ownership. But we couldn't come to an equal consensus around what the team wanted. And I didn't want to do something that would put anybody in an uncomfortable situation. So on that note, I had a buyer that kept knocking on my door, super interested in the company. And he is an awesome guy. He's a believer. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's young. He's got such a beautiful vision for how he wants to grow companies. And he saw house of revenue being the catalyst to do that. So he's like, hey, I like to buy companies, build them up, and then either put them for sale or build them as a part of a big ecosystem to build something stronger, kind of like what a PE firm does, but at the individual level. And I really liked him. I mean, he's a believer like me. We had a lot of really great conversations, and it was really a nice process getting to know him. I felt very comfortable with his vision and what he wanted to do. So I wasn't sure if that was ever going to come into fruition. I kept both options on the table of, hey, we dissolve this and give it to the employees or start over, or this guy's going to buy the company. I didn't entertain any other buyers or offers. It was really important to me to make sure we had the right person. I really liked him. And I'm like, he's going to be a really good owner of this company. So it was either him or it's going to the employees. So I resigned as CEO, and Kristen steps in. She had been on our team since August, and she stepped in as the CEO. And I was so grateful for that. She's incredible. She's flourishing. She's doing really well. You should get to know her if you don't know her. So Kristen steps in, and then I make the announcement that I've resigned and I go work full-time for one of my clients, being Payroll Network. And all of a sudden, February 1, I mean, this was like a whole new life for me. I had worn the CEO hat and the business owner hat for over 5 years. And I was burnt out, exhausted, and this new chief revenue officer role breathed so much life into me, and I was so, so, so grateful for it. I got to step in and lead fully. I have a great executive team, so I was able to really map out and build what I wanted. And I really enjoyed February, March, and April in building. We rebranded the company. We launched this gorgeous new brand in April. If you read the book, you know Sabrina, who was just a tremendous asset. She was helping me fractionally at PNI when I was on contract. She stayed in that role to continue to help me, for which I was very grateful because I've learned I cannot do this stuff on my own, and she's a tremendous asset. So Sabrina and I are having a great time. I'm ramping up with our sales manager, Ashley. Also, just like the three of us, just living the dream, building it and doing the best that we can in that. Meanwhile, I'm having the time of my life working for a new company and I'm fully engaged in that team, but it felt really weird because I still owned House of Revenue and I didn't emotionally grasp how difficult that would be, that I own a company that I don't work in, but I have the same love, if I can say it, like for these people. And I felt so split. And there was an eye-opening event. There was an event and I was on the stage. I was a panelist on the stage. And I had my House of Revenue team there and my P&I team there in the audience. I'm like, well, if this isn't awkward, I feel weird because I'm no longer their leader. I'm this leader over here, but I still own this company and these people are still important to me. And I could feel just this conflict inside of me. I knew I needed to get serious about a decision. Do I sell it or do I shut it down and reopen it, phase out my ownership and restructure that so that the remaining team members can have ownership? And Kristen and I went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And really, it was difficult because she's working hard and keeping the business operating and bringing on new clients and providing great service to the clients that I still had. And she was doing such a tremendous job with all of the above, and I still owned it. So of course I still had oversight and ensuring that things were going well and rolling up my sleeves when I needed to. But all in all, I came down to the decision and we decided that we're going to move forward with the buyer. It was just easier that if we were truly going to consider an option where we phased everything out from me and then built it up with the employees and did an employee owned company, that the planning and time for that, we just didn't have the planning and the time. The business needed capital to get through some slow months. I didn't have access to any of that capital, but a new owner would. And so we put the best interest of everybody involved in place. I was able to exit from the business on June 8th, and I'm grateful for it. I can say I've exited a business. That's cool. That's something to put on the resume. And I really appreciate the new owner. And I appreciate Kristen so much and the team. I was able to officially end that chapter of my life, and it was really the emotional break that I needed. I had a significant shift when I took the new job. Like 80% of the weight came off of me, and that was a really good time for me to heal. But that final lingering 20% came off in June. So very grateful for that transaction. So now the cliffhanger on that. So I want to give you an update on a few other things. In February, I started the process of really healing because I didn't realize how bad my mental health had gotten. I didn't realize how damaged on the inside and run down I was. I became a recluse. I feel like I did not really leave the house. I did not do any networking events. I was not vocal on any social media channel. I didn't record any podcasts. I did not feel like talking to anybody. I needed to just hide. I needed to feel safe and comfortable. And that's exactly what I did. I hid for months. I wanted to put my head down. I wanted to work. I wanted to do a good job. I wanted to start off really strong in my new role. And I also wanted to make sure that I was rebuilding some of the relationship with my son and my husband because I had more energy for them and more time for them. So that was great. I also was traveling a lot with my new job. And so I wanted to be real serious about the time we had together when I was home. Over the summer, I shut down social media, like totally did. I had started to play with it again, maybe in May. And I realized old habits were coming back and being addicted to scrolling that news feed. And I said, I'm just going to take the apps off my phone. I'm going to do no social media while my son is on summer break. And that's what I did. And then toward the end of the summer, I brought it back. And I knew my book was going to be launching in September. So I decided to start building a personal brand and getting some things together. But then this weird thing happened. What is my personal brand? My personal brand used to be tied to everything scaling revenue. I mean, gosh, think about the amount of stages I've been on, the podcast interviews, the voice I've had in the written word and blogs. Everything that I have done in the last 5 years has been about sales, marketing, customer success, and revenue operations and scaling revenue. That's what I was known for. I did all these CEO keynotes, how CEOs build holistic revenue engines, or how CEOs scale revenue or build high performing sales teams or whatnot. And I loved that. And that's what I was known for. That was my brand. And I had all sorts of really amazing speaking opportunities. And that would always result in business for House of Revenue. It was like clockwork. I'd go speak, I'd make money. Well, we'd make money as a company. But now my personal brand wasn't monetized. It wasn't tied to like, if I do this, then I get that. And I sat there and I was just confused. I'm like, I don't really know who I am with my brand. What do people want? Where do I add value into people's lives? And it was hard to figure it out. So I really doubled down on my day job because it was important to me to be the best that I could be in the role. And I got like really, really deep into it to where I couldn't see the forest through the trees. I was in the weeds, not really coming up for air. And I threw myself all the way in this job. And then I realized in September, like, girl, you better come up for air because God has more for you than just being a chief revenue officer. And I needed to get to a point where I could hear him and I could ensure that I wasn't just trading one bad habit for another. I'm a little bit of a workaholic and I have those tendencies. And so I have to be very conscious of that. So, what did I do? Well, God has an amazing way of revealing things to me. I know it's different with everybody, but I was having coffee with my friend Brent, and right there at Starbucks, sitting at the table, he was sharing with me how he just got connected to a new brand strategy group and they were helping him pull out his story so he could write a book and also build up his keynotes and what he was going to talk about. And I just lost it at the table. I just started crying and awkward for being in the middle of the Starbucks. But the Holy Spirit just moved my heart. And I had the realization in that moment that I know what I'm created for. I know the calling on my life. I just don't know how to open those doors. I'm very committed to spreading the good news of the gospel. If I had to look at all of the talents that I have, the one that brings me the most joy, the one I'm most consistent in producing really great results is talking. Predominantly when I'm being interviewed or I'm a panelist or I'm a keynote speaker, that's really where the magic happens. That's a really safe place for me. It's a good place for me. I've always gotten really strong feedback, super high ratings. And in that moment, when I can address people from the stage, something comes over me. It's a whole different me. I step on the stage. I don't have fear. I feel the energy from the audience and I will deliver a presentation. I walk off the stage and half the time, I don't even remember what I said. I'm so in the flow. I'm so in the zone. I feel a lot of times that the Lord speaks through me and some of the things that I say. And it's an unbelievable way to just channel him and have him work through me, be the love and the light. And I realized at that moment, crying at the Starbucks table, this is what I want to do with my life. I want to be a keynote speaker. I want to stand on stages and I want to share my testimony and I want to speak to people specifically, like a very specific audience of people who were like me when I first became a Christian. I was this lukewarm Christian because I was still learning and exploring, but I was in the marketplace. So I'm working in a commercial corporate environment where it's a little like not normal to talk about your faith and speak from that place. And when I became a Christian, I was working in corporate America. I was working for a big Fortune 1000 payroll and HR company. Kind of like I was working for myself when I became a Christian, but 8 months later, I'm working for, wait, hold on. Let me do this math. I can't do this math right. What year was that? 2012? I should go back and read my book. It's all laid out there. Anywho, became a Christian in 2012 on Christmas Day. And so yeah, a year later after that, I had started to pick up some corporate jobs that I was working at a company that I don't really talk about, which is a technology company. And then a year after that, I was back at the payroll company. So here I am 2 years being into a Christian, and I'm in an environment where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm back in corporate America, big company. My heart is on fire for Jesus, and I'm so rooted in my faith now, and I speak from the truth, but I can't talk that way while I'm at work. I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want people to judge me. I'll just keep my faith super quiet, and I'll just sit over here like, let me just leave Jesus in the car. I've got this stuff in the 8 to 5 at work. And when I get back in the car, I'll pick Jesus back up. Great. I'm on the road. Let's go. Well, I started to live this double life. And it wasn't until I founded my second company at the end of 2017 where I realized, like, wait a second, I own the company. I don't even have an HR department. I am the HR department. So I'm going to talk about my faith. And I infused scripture and I infused my truth and principles in my leadership. And I know that it was well received by my team. I had a lot of feedback and comments about how motivational it was, and people were so inspired. And also, by welcoming the Lord into my business and into the day to day, He kept me in check. I feel like my heart was centered in a really good, pure place. Even when I was run down and tired, I never had to do it alone. He was always with me. And yes, there were points when I'd falter and fall. Like we all do that, some more than others. I feel like I falter and fall a lot because the flesh side of me is very dominant, confident, and tries to make things happen. So, on that note, I became a lot more outspoken as a woman of faith. And then one of the first things that happened when I took a corporate job is I was like, shh, 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 I should be really quiet. I shouldn't share this. And unintentionally, I actually did offend an employee, which broke my heart a little bit because that's not my heart to ever offend anybody. But actually, my faith and the outspokenness, it did within like a month of being a full-time employee. It offended someone. And I thought, gosh, that's not who I want to be. I don't want to offend anybody. So that's one of the reasons I became so quiet, as I tried to figure out, how do I even stand firm in my faith and my truth now that I'm a corporate employee again and I don't run my own business? Well, that was a really big question for me. So I went into my little tortoise shell and I kept my mouth shut. So I'm sitting, fast forward again. So I'm having coffee with Brent and I just start crying, and I realize that my faith is more important than any job that I'll ever do, any works that I'll ever do in this world, or anything in this world. My faith is number one. And the calling of my life is to spread the good news of the gospel. And I have quite the audience and influence to do that because of what God has given me through my platform, through my testimony, through this book, through all my social media followers, my podcast audience. I love you all. I'm super grateful. And I realize I got to just cut to the chase. I have a tattoo down my arm, which is the last chapter of the book, which is not, it's kind of like a standalone little story. So many of you read that about the tattoo down my arm, be who you could have become. And centered on the last day of my life, I had a real vivid dream one night. I was talking to God, and He said to me, the next time we meet, next time we talk again, I will reveal to you how easy it could have been. Like, to be a good steward, to be a loving Christian woman, to spread the good news of the gospel, to lead people to salvation, that this, and all of the things that I was sitting in that moment thinking, how can little old me, unqualified little me, do that? And that's where the tattoo came from. Be who you could have become. Because when I see God again, and when I meet my maker, and when it's judgment day for me, yes, I have faults. Yes, I have sinned. Yes, I have made mistakes, but I want to stand before Him. And I want that to be revealed to me. And I want to say, hey, you know what, Mary, you did a really good job. And you didn't let this stuff get in your way, and you stood firm, and you knew the calling on your life, and you stepped into that, all the feelings of being unqualified and everything else that goes with it, but you did it. And how many lives were impacted because of it? So I see myself on stages like the Life Conference or the Worship at Work Conference, like the conferences that you see Tim Tebow doing, and Joyce Myers and Sadie Robertson, like these amazing, amazing, influential Christians. They take these stages and I see them up there and I know my story is worthy. I know my testimony is worthy, but more importantly, I know he is worthy. And I would love the honor and privilege to tell that story from those stages. And that's what I'm working to do. So I broke down that day with Brent. And I said, Brent, I need you to introduce me to these people that you're working with because I just need a door opened. I need a door. Like, I will do the work. I need a door. And he introduced me. And the second I started speaking with this group called Brand Builders, and I was speaking with one of their brand strategists. His name is Casey. And yet again, cue the tears. It just comes flooding through. And I just cry, cry, cry. And I said, my biggest fear is that I don't fulfill the calling on my life. I'm like, and I know the calling on my life is to spread the good news of the gospel. And it's to do it from my own place, with my own testimony. And it's to reach people who are like me, closet Christians, lukewarm Christians, those maybe too who have been hurt by Christianity and they once went to church, now they don't go there anymore. They're confused of what it is, or they want to grow in their faith, but they don't really know where to start. And I want to be the door opener for them. I want to be the catalyst that has them dive into the word. I want to point them towards Jesus. And I want to do this. I think that'll be the most incredible life lived. So can I do that? Yes, I can do those things. It's not an or to what I'm doing today. It's an and. I see myself with a very clear assignment in my current role. I've built an incredible team. I love them. They work really hard. We're fighting the good fight together in the world of sales and marketing and RevOps. I'm grateful for the job that I have. I'm grateful for the company that I work for. I love the assignment that I have to be a leader filled with love and light, even in the face of adversity. I get to continue to grow and mature. I'm knocking on 40. I turn 40 in 2 weeks. I want this next chapter of my life to be one of the most impactful and memorable. I want to do remarkable work inside of the organization where I'm working. I want to be the best chief revenue officer I can be inside and out, who I am as a human. I want the emotional impact that I create internally to be very positive. I want to inspire. I want to move people forward in their careers by giving them the mentorship and development and access to training and tools to make that happen. I want to win. I want to sell a lot. I want to grow the company. I want to serve our customer in a really unique way that they may not have always felt in the payroll and HR industry with some of the larger national providers, like where I got my start professionally. I think my assignment inside of my current role is important, and I'm excited to carry that out and do the best work that I can. And I'm excited to work with my brand strategist because I'm going to start writing new keynotes. I'm going to start planning for book number 2, and I am going to get my stuff together. I'm going to start continuously producing content on the podcast, the blog, on my social channels. And the plan for me is to set my eyes on the stage where I believe I am meant to be, where I can create an unbelievable impact. I see myself taking that stage, maybe right next to Tim Tebow. I don't know. Is there enough room? His biceps are pretty big. I think there's room for 2 of us on the stage. Just kidding. But I'm ready. And that's it for today. I hope that you enjoyed the update that you've all been waiting for. New episodes should be coming from me weekly, and I'm so excited to see you all again. Thank you. Thank you.